Historically, this has been quite a hot topic. The Iran ceasefire is really something mysterious in modern history. It went through so many twists and turns within just 36 hours. So what exactly happened during this period? Now, Trump is saying that the US military is coming back in force, ready to start fighting again. So what's going on here? This is the first topic we're bringing you today. The second topic is about NATO Secretary General Rutte. How did his meeting with Trump at the White House go yesterday? And along with that, there have been a series of moves in Europe. As you know, there was a very important event yesterday. US Vice President Vance went to Hungary and delivered a very important speech there. So what did he say in this speech? Why did he go to Hungary to give this speech? What changes are taking place in European politics? This is the second topic we're bringing you today. In addition, regarding the Iran war, after all this time, what has really been achieved? There are two countries, or rather two regimes, that are extremely nervous. One is the Chinese Communist Party. The other is Kim Jong-un of North Korea. So after all this tension, what actions have emerged? This is also a very interesting development. Also, Trump said that when the US military was forced to mobilize on a massive scale to rescue one person, that incident happened because someone inside the United States leaked information. Trump vowed to catch the person responsible and put them in jail. Who was caught? You might not expect it. This is another topic for today. The last topic, which is of great concern to the Chinese community, is that KMT chairwoman Cheng Li-wen is visiting China. I'd like to share some thoughts on this matter today as well. All right, welcome to listen to and watch Good Morning America, brought to you by Fang Wei. Hello to all our YouTube viewers and to the listeners of Sound of Hope, Silicon Valley FM 96.1. All right, let's get straight to the point. First, let's talk about the tweet President Trump posted this morning. Trump said that all American naval vessels, aircraft, military personnel, along with ammunition, weapons, and all equipment will continue to remain in Iran and the surrounding areas until we reach a real agreement that is fully implemented. If, for any reason, the agreement cannot be fulfilled, although the likelihood of this is very low, then the strikes will begin, and their scale will be larger, fiercer, and stronger than anything anyone has ever seen. Trump said that despite various false statements, a consensus was reached a long time ago. Iran must not possess nuclear weapons. Furthermore, the Strait of Hormuz must remain open and secure. During this period, our great military is currently resupplying equipment, making corrections, and standing by, actually looking forward to the next conquest. America's back, so that's why I say this is full of twists and turns. Let's start with the first twist. That is, at exactly 7 o'clock in the evening Eastern Time on Tuesday night, which was precisely 1 hour prior to the deadline Trump set for bombing Iran back to the Stone Age. President Trump officially announced a 2-week ceasefire, following a formal request made by the government of Pakistan. So what are the conditions? The conditions are that Iran must open the strait, stop developing nuclear weapons, work with the US military to dig up the enriched uranium buried underground, and let the US military take it away. After that, Iran can begin reconstruction. And the United States will begin to ease economic sanctions on Iran. At the same time, it will also say that Iran's 10-point agreement is feasible. This is the first wave, and it's all good news, isn't it? If things turn out that way, as I mentioned to everyone yesterday morning, it would be a major victory for the United States. Then the second wave immediately appeared. The second wave is called the Yin-Yang Agreement. What does that mean? It means there are two versions, two agreements, which surprised everyone. First of all, regarding Iran's 10-point nuclear agreement, everyone knows about the 10-point agreement. Trump said this could be called, the basis for our work. Everyone was very surprised, and I was surprised too, what was going on. Because regarding Iran's reconciliation, the 10-point agreement with Iran, how did I understand or learn about it? The US would withdraw its troops. The US would pull its military bases out of the Middle East. The US would never attack Iran. Iran would set rules for the strait, and the US would pay Iran war reparations. Isn't this a joke? What is this? How could that possibly work? Why did Trump say that? So what happened? The reason is that there were two versions circulating out there. Actually, there were 3 versions in total, but 2 of them were basically the same. Let's just simplify it to 2 versions. The content of these 2 versions was completely different. One was from Iran, which was not directly posted online by the US. The media took it and used it as Iran's timeline. That is, the key points I just read to everyone. As a result, this became the version that America's so-called legacy media, or mainstream media, or even what some call the left-leaning media, whatever you want to call it, widely cited. But the White House said, as for the version we received at the White House, we just threw it straight into the trash can. Yet you all are still using this to question Trump. So the White House harshly criticized the outdated media, saying that the agreement Trump referred to was actually a different 10-point agreement negotiated directly between the two governments. That's all there is to it. This is what they call a dual agreement. Some viewers asked me what exactly happened, so I'm explaining it to everyone. This is what happened. Alright, so what does this tell us? It reveals two things. First, it shows that the Iranian regime is being deceptive. They give one agreement to the Americans and then present a different agreement to the public. At the same time, the agreement they give to the Americans is half in English and half in Persian. What does that mean? It means they give one version to foreigners and another to their own people. They don't dare to deceive foreigners, but when it comes to their own people, they're willing to lie. They tell their own people, we won. So, the Iranian regime has always been a big liar. In fact, just a few days ago, Chinese state media said that the US military, if they can't rescue their people, will bomb their own pilots to death. This kind of utter nonsense, treating the world's greatest misfortune as a blessing, is exactly the kind of rhetoric put out by Iran. But what about the Chinese Communist Party's official media? They know full well that it's nonsense. They know that Iranian news has no credibility, yet they still publish it, and even have it reposted across the entire internet. In the end, this turns into a farce for the whole world, all because of this deception and lying. This is the specialty of both the CCP and the Iranian regimes. These two are birds of a feather. I'm not insulting anyone here. I'm just stating the facts, aren't I? In fact, the two of them are even competing to see who can tell bigger lies. So that's the first point. The second point is about these American legacy media or institutional media. Instead of asking the White House about the content of the agreement or seeking out credible or authoritative parties involved, they just copy something from the internet. This leads to what we call a news blunder. How do such news blunders happen? Of course, they're caused by the tendency to reverse the narrative, right? This is actually a big problem. In a proper news organization, people will be fired for this. How can you report false news? But this is exactly the problem with legacy media today. The tendency to reverse the narrative makes it so they can't even report normal news properly. Anyway, this second wave is called the Yin-Yang Agreement. The third wave is that the Israeli Prime Minister said he supports President Trump's ceasefire, but the agreement does not include the part about Israel fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon. We will continue to fight them. Alright, so some people have said that the Prime Minister of Pakistan clearly wrote in his tweet that Hezbollah in Lebanon is included in this ceasefire. But it's not just Israel that doesn't acknowledge it. Vance doesn't recognize it either, because Vance is the one directly negotiating with Iran. Of course, when I say direct negotiations, it's actually indirect. The US and Iran have always communicated through a third country, through Pakistan, so they've never actually sat down face to face. This is what might happen next. Vance is the main representative for the US. Wasn't sure I never once ever mentioned. How do you say never once mentioned? Hezbollah in Lebanon is involved in this, so some netizens say, but the Prime Minister of Pakistan did say something. But what does that matter? He's just the one making the request. He's a third party. This is an American negotiation. It's the US that's the negotiating party, right? The other party is Iran. So when the US comes out and says that Hezbollah in Lebanon was never mentioned, including in the ceasefire agreement, then of course that's what counts, right? So what Israel said is actually correct. This was verified by the US Vice President. But then the third wave is that the Israeli Prime Minister said, we will continue to fight Hezbollah in Lebanon. The fourth wave is that Iran fought fiercely throughout the night, attacking numerous key civilian facilities in innocent Gulf countries, including oil refineries and desalination plants. So what is the reason? The reason is that Israel, as you can see, is attacking Hezbollah, and you are not honoring the agreement. Alright, at the same time, Iran is also continuing to blockade the strait. Now, according to Iranian officials, no more than 15 ships are allowed to pass through the strait each day. What does this mean? This is only 5% to 8% of the normal daily traffic through the strait. That's the situation. So this is the fourth wave. The fifth wave is the UAE striking back, the second most powerful country among the Gulf states. So, the UAE strikes back. The top power is Saudi Arabia. For the first time, they deployed military aircraft and missiles to bomb 2 Iranian refineries and several petrochemical facilities. UAE aircraft flew directly into southern Iran. This is the first time this has happened publicly. This is the fifth wave. But the US and Israel have maintained a ceasefire. There hasn't been any fighting for the past day and a half. They've been holding the ceasefire. The US is keeping its promise. So what is the sixth wave? The sixth wave is that the US is leading the negotiations. Vance said that in the US-Iran peace talks, Hezbollah is completely excluded. How can you still possibly dare to use a reason like this as an excuse to violate the agreement? Think very carefully about this. President Trump is the one who holds all of the winning cards in this situation. Then Trump clearly said that the military is actively gearing up and preparing for action, which is exactly what I just mentioned to you earlier. It's called re-equipping, resupplying, regrouping, and standing by, waiting for the next conquest. America is coming back. America has returned. This is the sixth and seventh wave, which is news that just came in before the show. First, Iran's Fars news agency reported that a few hours ago, an Iranian deputy foreign minister told ITV News that Iran would only do so if Israel that would only participate in negotiations a few hours after Israel stops its strikes on Lebanon. 2 hours after this statement was released, the same deputy foreign minister said that our delegation would sign up to attend the talks in Islamabad. So in the end, it comes down to the fact that they still want to negotiate, still want to talk, still want peace. This is the situation. They still want to negotiate, still want a ceasefire. So after going around in circles for a day and a half with so many twists and turns, let's just wait and see if there will be more tomorrow. But indeed, there's no doubt about it. This is a very, very fragile negotiation, a very fragile ceasefire. First of all, Iran is definitely not willing to do this. Second, they are habitual liars. This regime really is used to lying. So even if they sign an agreement with you, you still don't know if they'll actually keep it. I believe the US government, well, it's not that I believe, I know the US government is fully aware of this. So let's wait and see. As we look ahead, the question is whether Iran can truly be brought under control. All right, let's move on to the next topic. NATO Secretary General Rutte visited the US. I actually titled this segment Shocking Words. Is it really shocking? It truly is. Because the mainstream American media interviewing him described it as very shocking. They said he made shocking words about Europe. NATO Secretary General Rutte had a closed-door meeting with Trump at the White House yesterday. This time, the meeting was not open to the public. No one else was allowed in. Clearly, some very candid and straightforward things were said. That's just how it was. After the talks, it was reported that both sides had a very frank exchange. President Trump's disappointment with many NATO allies is very obvious. But at the same time, Rutte said, I can understand President Trump's position, but the vast majority of European countries have provided support in terms of infrastructure, logistical support, granting airspace over flight rights, and fulfilling various commitments. Afterwards, he was interviewed by American media, at least 2 different outlets. They asked him, they pressed him, did Trump say he wanted to withdraw from NATO? Rutte did not answer directly. He just said, as I mentioned, that Trump was very disappointed, but at the same time, he also listened to me very seriously. Now, when you hear this, what does it mean when you translate it? If you translate it, it most likely means that Trump definitely brought it up, right? If he hadn't brought it up, he would have just said so, and that would be the end of it. He definitely brought it up, but it was hard for him to say directly, so in the end, he just didn't answer, and only said that Trump was very disappointed. All right, that's that. Then, a reporter from the media asked him, the host asked him, do you think that some NATO countries were tested but failed? This is Trump's original wording. They are tested and they failed. We tested them and they failed. They didn't pass. They didn't make it. So he said that this was indeed the case for some of those countries. Then he went on to criticize the European countries himself, mainly the Western and Northern European countries. So as you all know, this is a representative from Europe coming here and saying these things. Although these words may not sound particularly shocking at first, they are actually quite astonishing because this is the Secretary General of NATO from Europe. The former Dutch Prime Minister is now the Secretary General of NATO, so this person, he really does understand Trump. Not only does he understand him, he is also a strong supporter of Trump. So, as I was saying, if this guy wants to do a good job, and if NATO is to survive, he basically needs to become Trump's ambassador to Europe. Anyway, right now, the relationship between the United States and Europe is indeed constantly changing. Amidst all this upheaval and transformation, the second piece of news I want to share is about the 84,000 US troops stationed in Europe. Now, there are reports coming out about the Pentagon's plans. At the time, this information was leaked anonymously. America is planning to adjust its military forces, to move some troops from one base to another. What is the standard for this? It's to leave countries that are unfriendly to the United States and move to countries that are friendly to the United States. Who are these countries? Poland, Romania, Greece, or Hungary? These kinds of countries. And where are the troops being withdrawn from? That wasn't specified, but I'll say it for them. Obviously, they're pulling out from Spain, from Germany, from France, and so on. As for whether the UK will withdraw, I don't know. I think if Farage becomes Prime Minister, the relationship between the US and the UK will warm up very quickly, so the UK is a big variable here. Another thing is, moving on to the next issue, yesterday, Vance went to Hungary to give a speech. Why did Vance go to Hungary to give a speech? He went there to support the election campaign, because on April 12th, Hungary will hold parliamentary elections. This is a bit like what happened in Argentina with Milei. The parliamentary elections there, because Hungary has a parliamentary system, the parliament decides, and the prime minister decides the president. So, according to current polls, the opposition party is in the lead, with support rates between 40% and 50%. The current government, led by Prime Minister Orbán, has support between 30% and 40%. So the opposition party is leading by 5 to 10 percentage points. However, due to the electoral system and other factors such as resource advantages, Orban still has a considerable chance of winning. In other words, it's the same situation. Hungary might also end up with what's called, a popular vote majority that doesn't necessarily translate into parliamentary seats in the end. So the outcome of this election is highly uncertain. Vance travelled all the way to Hungary to share the stage with Orban. In plain terms, it was almost like campaigning together, right? And then, interestingly, when he got on stage, he said, "Let me make a call first. Let me call someone. Call someone. Not sure if he'll pick up." So he made the call, called Trump, but Trump didn't answer. He said it was a bit awkward, just didn't pick up. He said, "No voicemail, not set up yet." But he was probably joking. Then he said, "Let me try again. Let me try again." He tried again, and this time Trump answered. Through Vance's phone, Vance put the phone on speaker and held it up to the microphone. Trump then gave a speech to the local audience right there. After that, it was Vance's turn to speak. Vance's speech was very clear. He emphasized sovereignty, national identity, and traditional values. He said that these are the keys to the continuation of Western civilization. Vance highly praised Hungary, saying that in the past, Hungary has done an excellent job in maintaining autonomy in its immigration culture and policies. At the same time, Vance identified the main current challenge as the internal threat posed by far-left ideology and bureaucratic systems to the Western world. He stated that our European civilization, our Western civilization, is under threat from within, and he openly called on the public to support Orban and to defend the direction of Western civilization. Wow, by doing this, he really must have infuriated many Western European leaders. Speaking of Zelensky, before the 2024 election, he went to help Biden and then got harshly criticized by Trump. Now, you guys are openly coming over here to help with the election, interfering in our internal affairs. Of course, they're furious. But I want to talk about whether this is outrageous or not. Let me give you an analogy, because the entire world order is really changing. It truly is changing. You know how in the past it was all about not interfering in internal affairs, not interfering in internal elections, not interfering with public opinion? That's not the case anymore. Why? Because Trump and the Trump-Vance administration, they deeply feel that Western civilization is now facing a major threat. It's a matter of survival, a question of life or death. They might not be able to make it. So let me give you another analogy so everyone can better understand the current situation, or how these Western leaders, including the Trump administration and other national leaders, view this issue of, let's say, going deep into another country to participate in their elections. It's still the same. Imagine the Earth as the United States. On this Earth, there are red states and blue states, or rather, red states and blue states. The red states represent conservative countries, and the blue states represent liberal or even far-left countries. That's the situation. So for Trump to win the whole world, he needs to hold on to each of these red states, or turn the blue states red. Hungary is just one such state. This is what it means. So just like how he traveled all over the United States, trying to win back each state, now he's trying to win over each country. That's what this is about. Given the current global situation, he is doing this for the sake of Western civilization. It's a matter of survival, whether Western civilization can continue to exist. He doesn't care about your so-called principles like non-interference in internal affairs or whatever. He just takes direct action, because for him, it's a matter of life and death. That's why he acts this way, including in the Argentine election, right? The US gave Argentina $20 billion to buy 2 million, pesos, right? The peso currency. And then they gave another, no, not 2 million, $20 billion, $20 billion, and then another $20 billion in, loans. And as a result, you end up winning a landslide victory in this election, the midterm election. So in these respects, I think this is how the whole world is turning into an America. The way the US originally ran elections, you'll see Trump and Vance doing the same thing on a global scale. How they campaign, how they participate in elections. That's basically the situation. This is the current pattern of change in our Western world. Whether you're happy about it or not, whether you agree or not, whether you're willing or not, that's just how it is. If you don't protect those countries will change. They'll change. Okay, of course, the other side will also take action. So gradually, I think this will become a normal phenomenon that everyone accepts. Maybe by the next time, in 2028, during the US presidential election, those European countries might come and directly get involved, providing money, people, and so on. I think this could very well happen. As for the Trump team, or rather the Republican Party, of course, I would definitely start criticizing them, but you can't necessarily say they're breaking the law because you're doing the same thing yourself. So what am I trying to say here? I'm not talking about right or wrong right now. I'm just describing what I see. This is an inevitable change in the global political landscape. Every country has become a battleground for ideological struggles, a battlefield where both sides are fighting to gain ground, and all have become targets. So, to sum up what Vance is saying, his main point is to talk to the Hungarian people about the dangers of the extreme left and the dangers of communism, and to get everyone to support the boss. That's basically the situation. All right, so that's about this aspect. Actually, what I just mentioned was told to me by Xintian because the speech was quite long and I didn't have time to listen to it this morning. He listened to it today and soon it will be made into a program. You can go to Xintian Face to Face to subscribe to this program. Don't miss this program. So what exactly did Vance say? And what are the key points? Today's special report on Face to Face will give you a complete picture. I think it's worth it for everyone because this person could very well be the future president of the United States. Even if he doesn't become president, he still represents the main line of thought of this governing team in the United States and the core ideas of Western civilization. Because Vance is especially focused on this area, he's even more attentive to it than Trump. Okay, so as you can see, that's why I think that to understand the rapidly changing world we're in, we really need to pay attention to this. All right, now let's talk about this link. I'll post it after I finish preparing it today. It's not ready yet. All right, next, let's talk about this topic. Did Iran's 100 missiles fired at a US aircraft carrier all come from the Chinese Communist Party? With a question mark, of course. I do have some answers to this question, so this news is quite important. First, let's talk about March 24th, when Trump confirmed that Iran launched 101 ballistic missiles at the USS Lincoln, which was in the Indian Ocean. All of the missiles were successfully intercepted by the US Navy. Now, there are reports saying that these missiles, which failed to hit their target, were recently supplied to Iran by the Chinese Communist Party through Pakistan. All right, so let's talk about this in detail. Trump clearly stated that there were 101 missiles, and basically, after they were launched, all of them were intercepted by the US Navy's defense system. Some of the missiles didn't even get close to the aircraft carrier before being intercepted by the defense system, including what's called. This was explained as the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers and SM-6 missiles intercepting all of them. None of the missiles hit the aircraft carrier. So Trump even went into detail about what the soldiers did, how these sailors on the destroyers saw the incoming flashes, how they operated, and how they precisely shot them down. Each one was not easy, but in the end, all 101 missiles were intercepted. But on the Iranian side, they claimed the attack was successful and even released corresponding footage showing hits, claiming they struck the Lincoln and forced it to change course. However, the US Central Command said that was not the case, and the US Navy also denied it, saying there was no damage at all. Of course, each side has its own version, right? Who you believe is up to your own judgment, isn't it? Who would you believe? I think the answer is obvious, but that's not the most important topic here. The key points are twofold. First, after 101 missiles were launched, some reports say they were fired from 17 different directions, possibly from 17 locations. That's possible because what is Iran now called? It's called dividing forces, or how should I put it? Breaking up a whole into parts. So, coordinating launches from different locations at the same time to strike at the US aircraft carrier is possible. All right, but this event represents two major things. What is the first? The first is that this is the first time in actual combat that a US aircraft carrier has faced a saturation missile attack. Okay, as everyone knows, it's actually very difficult to hit an aircraft carrier. There are three reasons why it's hard to hit. First, the defensive radius of an aircraft carrier is extremely large, so it's very hard to get close. If you try to approach, they'll take you out. Their planes will come out and take you down. So, generally speaking, to attack an aircraft carrier, you have to strike from a distance. What striking from a distance means is you have to fly a certain distance before you can reach it, and that's the second reason, because the aircraft carrier is always moving, so you can't aim accurately. For example, if the defensive radius of the carrier is over 500 kilometers, then Iran's missiles are definitely launched from beyond 500 kilometers, more than 1,000 kilometers away. That is, from beyond 500 kilometers, you can directly launch missiles from over there. At a distance of 500 kilometers, it basically takes at least 10 minutes for the missile to fly over. In those 10 minutes, the aircraft carrier is constantly moving during combat. It never just stays in one place to fight. Once combat starts, or even during normal times, it's always moving, traveling at 55 kilometers per hour. So after 10 minutes, it's already 8 kilometers away from its original position. So if I'm here and you aim and fire at me, by the time your missile arrives, I'm already 8 kilometers away. The second reason is that the large defensive radius makes it hard to get close, and it's always on the move. Third, its defenses are extremely difficult to penetrate. Carriers have at least 4 defensive layers, but we'll focus on 3. First is the Aegis system, which uses long-range missiles to intercept your incoming missiles. All right, the second layer is the mid-range interception missiles. If you manage to get closer, it has another type of missile to shoot you down. And then there's another one which is called the Close-in Weapon System, or CIWS. What is this? It's a radar-guided system that automatically searches for targets. There's no need to manually aim, unlike in World War II, when you had to look everywhere for where the planes or missiles were coming from. The radar itself detects incoming missiles and then directs these autocannons. These autocannons can fire between 4,500 and 6,000 rounds per minute. These are 20mm rounds. Whether you call them bullets or shells, these are fired by the autocannons, so it's like a metal storm sweeping across the sky, shooting down anything that comes. This way, even missiles that have already penetrated 2 layers of defense nets and are right in front of you can be shot down. This is the third layer. Actually, I mentioned a fourth layer earlier because of the aircraft. The American carriers' fighter jets have an even greater range, so that counts as a fourth layer. As for the fifth factor, even if you hit it, you might not actually succeed because the aircraft carrier is huge. Even if you score a hit, it still might not be enough. So when it comes to attacking an aircraft carrier, the first thing is that you need multiple waves of attacks. That's the first requirement. The second is that every wave must be a saturation attack. Even though your interception capabilities are strong, you can't handle it if I come at you from all directions with so many attacks at once. You just can't block them all, right? In the end, there's a chance that 1 or 2 will break through and hit the carrier. That's exactly what Iran did. But what about the United States? For the first time in actual combat, an aircraft carrier proved that even a so-called saturation attack with 101 missiles couldn't break through. Not at all. It's 3-layer defense system. So for the US, this is a very significant event. This has greatly boosted their confidence. That's the first major event. The second major event is what? Multiple media outlets and social platforms have reported that these missiles are recent anti-ship missiles supplied by the Chinese Communist Party, with some or all of them provided in February or between January and February. They're called CM-302 supersonic anti-ship missiles, which the CCP refers to as carrier killers. They were transported from land through Pakistan to Iran, okay? And at the beginning of 2026, after the incident in Venezuela, Iran quickly purchased weapons from the Chinese Communist Party. Among these was the CM-302 supersonic anti-ship missile, which has been publicly reported. It's just unclear whether the batch that was launched is the same as the one that was supplied. But now, many reports strongly suspect that they are indeed the same. So, these 101 missiles, either all of them or some of them, are from the CCP. What does it mean to have supersonic anti-ship missiles? Let me explain to everyone. General Flynn, who was Trump's former national security advisor, General Flynn, he posted this morning, he tweeted, saying that if this matter, even if only part of it is true, it raises serious doubts about Pakistan's role as a neutral mediator between the United States and Iran. What does it mean? It means you're helping the Chinese Communist Party attack the United States through Iran. So how can you claim to be neutral or act as a mediator? You're clearly taking sides. And then, General Flynn went on to say that if the report about the Chinese Communist Party supplying anti-ship missiles to Iran through Pakistan is true, then this constitutes an act of war. The CCP and Pakistan should be immediately warned, and the CCP should absolutely no longer be allowed to send 500,000 students to study at American universities, not to mention all the other various dealings between the US government and the CCP. So you see, this has really angered some Americans. So General Flynn continued, if this is true, then how should we view Pakistan's role as a mediator? Some people really need to face reality.